Wikus Steyl of Ian Levitt Attorneys is lawyer for the Khosa family. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us once again. Apologies for that network problem that we had earlier on. Now, what I was saying is that you had spoken about the right to life and dignity, of which were some of the findings by the judge when he made his findings, mentioning sections 10, 11 and 12 of the Constitution.
Yes, correct. Those are the basic human rights that it has now been declared that the security cluster cannot take away from you, even in a state of emergency or during the lockdown. And it's unfortunate that we had to approach the court for a declaration like that. And one should have expected that government would never transgress those rights. But we are relieved that this has now been declared.
One of the other things that you were seeking was a proper investigation into this, and I did recall that I think it was mid last month the SANDF, through its spokesperson at that time, had said that they are willing to cooperate with any investigation. Has that been brought to bear, and how does this findings by the Pretoria High Court affect that?
They are now finally investigating the death of Collins Khosa. I, together with the family, have met with members from the police, the military, IPID and JMPD. But again, we had to approach the court to force them to do a proper investigation. Up to then, any investigation was a sham, just to please the bosses. But I'm sure now that the court has called for reports and a proper investigation will be done, and the family will find justice.
And one of the things that you had also earlier sought before you had relief from court was the suspension of the officers involved. We've heard that the SANDF saying that it will comply, but an earlier statement that I heard from the spokesperson of at least the Johannesburg Metro Police is saying that their lawyers are still studying the judgment before they can action that. Has there been any indication that they too will follow suit, including the SAPS, that those members who are alleged to be involved will also be placed on suspension?
No, we've not received any indication that JMPD will not suspend the members. At the moment, it stands that the soldiers must be suspended and any other member from the JMPD that were involved. For them to now say that they are studying the judgment to decide if they want to suspend is ridiculous. The court has found that they were involved in the killing of a person and they violated constitutional rights. I don't see on what grounds you will not suspend a person like that. It is ridiculous to have the same soldiers and the same JMPD officers that were involved walking the streets with the very same guns that they used to kill Mr. Khosa.
The issue of the leadership of these various entities within the national safety services have come under scrutiny, being criticised from the get-go, not behaving in a manner that would be seen as empathetic to the circumstances that unfolded, including the fact that you aren't really aware from previous statements of who exactly is involved. Are you any clearer on that? Are you getting better sense, greater light being shed on this?
No, up to today, I still do not know who the members are that were involved from the SANDF or the JMPD. One of the police investigators asked me today if I know, because they also don't know yet, even though they are doing a proper investigation. But you are quite correct that the leadership has been lacking since the beginning of the lockdown. There have been contradictory statements from the president down to generals in the SANDF, with some saying skop, skiet and donder and others saying that's not what we do. There is, I don't know if you can call it a vacuum in leadership, but the leadership is lacking and failing not only the soldiers in the bush, but they are failing the country.
Part of the court judgment speaks about that, that's 3.2 of the judgment, say within 2 days command all members of the SANDF, SAPS and any MPD to adhere to the absolute prohibition of torture and cruel, inhumane and degrading treatment. We saw the Commander-in-Chief, the President, at the very onset of lockdown speak to this. There were reports of alleged incidents against civilians by members of the security force that was said to be unbecoming with the circumstances. How much more explicit can you get? I mean, I'd imagine that torture under any circumstances ought to be prohibited. So do they really need a lecture on this?
One would expect that it's not necessary to lecture soldiers and police on facts that they are not allowed to torture someone. But as this case has shown, they've horribly failed in that. We had to approach the court to declare that you cannot torture a person or kill a person. It's South African law and international law, and the commander-in-chief, the president, might have warned against it, but the messages that went through to the actual members obviously did not stick to them, and they have continued to torture. If you look at the many videos that were spread of soldiers forcing people to do push-ups and sit-ups and rolling on the ground to their own amusement, it's absolutely ridiculous. It shows that they heard the president, but they absolutely ignored him. They ignored the Constitution, and they ignored the international obligation.
Now, obviously, because of the chain of command, if you look at within the army, for instance, I would like to understand from you from a civilian standpoint, because one of the orders here is that they must develop and publish a code of conduct, especially on operational procedure. What would you like to do that the SANDF would not feel threatens its very stricture of operations within the SANDF?
The code of conduct is absolutely necessary. The soldiers were deployed after they've been trained for war and to attack terrorists. The police are trained to enforce laws, but those two just don't join each other. And I think at the moment that the soldiers don't quite know what they are allowed to do and how they should do it. But with a proper code of conduct, they might be better behaved, seeing they will know how to do and what to do in conjunction with the police. But at the moment, they are doing what they are trained to do, and that's absolutely wrong.
Oh, thank you so much for speaking to us. Wikus Steyl is lawyer for the Khosa family, and he is with Levitt Attorneys. We're going to take a quick break, and of